The children sat with rapt attention, their gazes fixed upon Tomas Yame as he stood before the humble classroom. He adjusted his stiff colonial jacket, a mark of his status as an Evolue, a native trained in the ways of the French, molded into a vessel of French civilization. By his late 20s, Yame had risen to Evolue, becoming his kin's first black teacher and a perfect trophy the French showed off. His fluency in French, Catholic faith, and sharp intellect earned him the trust of the French elite. To the colonial authorities, he was proof that assimilation worked. To his people, however, he was a man torn between worlds, a traitor in black skin who lived as a white man. If only they knew the secret Yame harbored.
In knowledge, there is power.
Yame told the children, his voice measured, deliberate.
But never forget who you are, even as you speak their words.
The children nodded obediently, their young faces reflecting the same conflict that stirred within their teacher. Knowledge had made him an Evolue, but at what cost? He turned to the class, guilt and sorrow churning within him as he said,
Liberté, égalité, fraternité.
A boy raised his hand. Teacher, what does it mean? Yame hesitated, his grip on the chalk unsteady. Outside, the rhythmic clatter of marching boots echoed through the narrow streets. French soldiers patrolled in pristine uniforms, rifles slung over their shoulders. A cruel irony, the very words they forced him to teach these children were a stark mockery of the oppressed existence they were subjected to.
It means freedom, equality, and brotherhood.
He said finally, the words bitter on his tongue. A girl asked, if these words are ours, Maître, why do we live as if they belong only to them?
Now isn't the time for questions.
He smiled, his voice steady as he turned back to the board and began writing with frenzied intensity. How much longer could he maintain this charade? That afternoon, as Yame walked through Dafira's sun-scorched streets, his arms burdened with French textbooks, a wall poster caught his eye. Gouverneur Beaumont's face, smug and unyielding, stared back at him beneath the words, Civilisation par la assimilation. Beneath the poster, an Evolue, a Dafira man clad in a finely tailored European suit, stood stiffly before two French officers, his fingers tightening around a certificate of citizenship that trembled in his grasp. I have met all the requirements, the man said, his French impeccable. Surely, one officer sneered, and yet you still reek of the jungle. The other laughed, snatching the certificate and tearing it in two. Assimilation indeed, know your place. Yame turned away, his fists clenched. He had long understood that open defiance meant certain death. Not yet. Manafi had once told him, her voice steady with quiet conviction. Dafira will be free soon.
But when?
He had asked, frustration simmering beneath his breath. She had only smiled, her gaze fixed on the horizon. When the glory comes. That night when others slept, Yame followed a hidden path deep into the forest. Naive, the dense foliage swallowed the light, and the whispers of unseen spirits danced on the wind. At the journey's end, he found her. Manafi, her small weathered frame adorned with cowrie shells. The fire before her flickered and spat embers into the dark. Yame approached.
They burned my village.
He said, his voice raw.
They killed my family. Now they parade us like tamed beasts and call it civilization. I can't wait for the glory. I'll be the glory.
Manafi studied him.
Vengeance is a fire, son. It doesn't burn alone. It consumes.
Then let it consume me as long as it burns them too.
Manafi's eyes bore into him.
You will become him in every way. His memories, his body, his thoughts, his sins. And beyond that, the spirits demand a greater sacrifice. You will lose your ability to father children. Your lineage will end with you.
Weeks later, Tomas Yame stood in Gouverneur Beaumont's grand study, the air thick with the scent of expensive cigars and aged brandy.
Ah, Tomas.
Beaumont drawled, deliberately omitting the surname that its owner preferred. Hi.
The Evolue who inspires hope.
He chuckled, swirling his drink.
Proof that the savage can be civilized.
Yame smiled, his expression smooth, despite the fury coiling beneath his skin.
I am honored, Governor.
Beaumont leaned back, taking a slow drag from his cigar, the ember glowing.
What brings you here? Another petition for your little school?
Yame shook his head.
No, Governor. I wish to serve in a greater capacity. My knowledge of both worlds makes me an invaluable asset to your administration.
Beaumont smirked, tapping the ash from his cigar.
Ambition. I like that.
He gestured toward the chair in front of him.
Take a seat then. Let's see if you're as clever as they say.
By the time Yame stepped out of the gouverneur's study, his place within the colonial administration was assured. A carefully won position that placed him one step closer to his prey. Now close. This hunter observed everything. He studied Beaumont's habits, his indulgences, and, most crucially, the fear that gnawed at him beneath his arrogance. For all his cruelty, the man was terrified of one thing: death. He spoke of legacy, of permanence, of escaping the decay that claimed lesser men. And within that fear, Yame found his opening. One evening, beneath the glow of the oil lamps in the governor's private lounge, Yame sat discussing with Beaumont.
Gouverneur,
He began.
have you ever considered a legacy beyond stone and paper? Something eternal.
Beaumont's eyes narrowed with intrigue.
Eternal?
He leaned forward slightly.
Go on.
Yame smiled. His prey was ready. Under the crimson glow of a lunar eclipse, Yame led Beaumont to a secluded cave. Candles flickered along the stone walls, the air thick with incense. Beaumont lay upon a ritual altar, his smirk laced with arrogance.
This had better not be a waste of time.
Beaumont scoffed.
It won't be.
Yame assured him, securing the straps around his wrists.
Close your eyes. Trust me.
As Yame chanted, the cave walls seemed to tremble. The air vibrated with unseen energy. Then, a searing pain, a violent shift, a scream. Beaumont's eyes snapped open. But he was no longer himself. He looked down at his hands, dark, calloused, African. Yame, now inhabiting Beaumont's pale, privileged flesh, smirked as he gazed down at his new self, white, weak, Western. He leveled the gun without hesitation, his grip steady, his aim ending his prey.
Now you will see life through our eyes, Gouverneur. Forgotten, forsaken, erased because of the very skin we wear.
The real Beaumont, imprisoned in Yame's former body, staggered, his mouth opening in a soundless cry of fury. His knees buckled, his body crumpling to the cold earth. His last breath, his plea, his prayer, swallowed by the void. Yame returned in Beaumont's body, power thrumming through his veins. His heart trembled, not with fear, but with the weight of his mission. With Beaumont's mind now entangled with his own, he slipped effortlessly into his new role, unlocking the governor's vast knowledge, every strategy, every weakness, every closely guarded secret of the French system. Yet, one challenge remained: how to reach the nationalists in Dafira without arousing suspicion. The answer came one evening, as Yame stepped into Beaumont's grand ballroom, his polished boots clicking against the marble. Crystal chandeliers bathed the opulent hall in golden light, illuminating the gathered elite. French officers and Evolue, their conversations halting as they turned toward him. They bowed in deference, unquestioning. Raising his glass, he let his voice ring out with the commanding authority of a colonial statesman.
Gentlemen, tonight we celebrate progress. This noble mission of civilization and unity carried out under the great ideals of France.
A ripple of applause moved through the room, measured and dutiful. But just as the clinking of glasses resumed, the doors burst open. Two soldiers strode in, dragging a struggling figure between them. A woman, barefoot, bruised, and bowed. Even in the dim glow of the chandeliers, her eyes blazed, a fire no whip, no law, no empire had yet managed to extinguish. She glared up at him, fierce and unyielding, mistaking Yame for the real Beaumont.
"You monsters! Murderers! Release me at once!"
She said in crisp, precise, and flawless French, Yet her attire, woven with the rich patterns of homeland, marked her as anything but an Evolue. Montclair, Beaumont's ever-loyal deputy, stepped forward with a smirk.
A gift, Governor, caught stealing.
I am no thief, just reclaiming what you parasites stole.
She shot back.
My people starve while you grow fat on what is ours.
Yame felt amazed at her audacity.
What is the meaning of this?
He thundered, angry at the bruises marring her skin the color of the earth itself, divine and rich. Montclair chuckled, mistaking his displeasure for annoyance at the interruption.
For your pleasure, Gouverneur. A lesson in submission.
Yame's mind sharpened.
A lesson, indeed, but not the one you imagine, Montclair.
He mused within, a plan taking root, his expression unreadable. He spoke with the cold authority they expected.
Take her to my chambers.
Later that night, in the privacy of his quarters, he revealed the truth.
Yira Naba, you will be my hand and my face in bringing freedom to Dafira.
She stared, stunned.
You really are Yame.
Yes.
His gaze held hers.
We must move quickly, but carefully.
Over the following months, they began their work in earnest. Coordinating with resistance leaders, they formed a nationalist network, funneling intelligence that strengthened the movement. To the Evolues and natives, this unseen benefactor offered a promise both perilous and irresistible.
You are the bridge between the old order and the new.
He told them through Yira, who was now a deaf spy under Yame's tutelage.
Your patriotism will forge the path to our shared destiny.
Using Gouverneur Beaumont's authority, Yame ordered the release of several political prisoners, framing it as a gesture of goodwill. He initiated a review of colonial policies, masking his sabotage as reform to promote inclusion. Under his leadership, policies that once tightened France's grip now subtly loosened it. But change, especially in colonial times, rarely goes unnoticed. Suspicion crept through the French administration, and soon, Montclair, Beaumont's deputy, confronted Yame in the gouverneur's study.
Gouverneur,
Montclair began, his voice measured but firm.
your recent decisions, they are uncharacteristic. Releasing prisoners? Revising policies. This is not the Beaumont I know.
Yame met his gaze, his expression cool, unreadable.
Times are changing, Colonel. Responsiveness is the key to control. You must give them just enough hope to keep them trapped.
Montclair hesitated, thrown by the remark.
I fail to understand you.
Yame stood, adjusting his cuffs as if the conversation bored him.
Frankly, I find myself exhausted with this land. I intend to return to France and write to the king, recommending you as my successor.
Montclair's eyes flickered with ambition before he quickly masked it, but not before Yame caught the glimmer. When the deputy clasped his hand in a firm, eager shake, Yame knew the bait had been sealed. In the following weeks, Yame orchestrated the final phase of his plan. With the colonial administration now riddled with fractures, he publicly announced his departure, citing health concerns. His resignation sent ripples through the French ranks, further destabilizing control just as Dafira's nationalist forces reached their peak. Back in France, now fully inhabiting Beaumont's identity, Yame wielded his stolen influence with precision. He funneled wealth and resources into Dafira's liberation efforts, strategically backing leaders and policies that weakened French rule. From the heart of the empire, he turned its own power against itself, ensuring that when Dafira's revolution came, France would be too blind to stop it. In 1960, their relentless efforts bore fruit, and Dafira emerged victorious, finally claiming its independence. From a grand Parisian estate, Yame, now and forever Beaumont, listened to the distant echoes of celebration, the voices of a liberated people carried through the radio. Beside him, Yame Naba sat.
You've freed them, mon chéri.
She smiled. Yame exhaled slowly, his gaze fixed on the horizon.
Now, they will forge their own destiny.